You ever feel that moment when your patience just snaps? For me, it wasn't a screaming match or some dramatic showdown. It was finding my son's busted wheelchair lying in the gutter, twisted like scrap metal, next to a golf cart marked HOA patrol. That chair wasn't just a mobility device, it was my son Cody's legs, his freedom, and someone had crushed it like it meant nothing. Let me rewind. After 20 years undercover with the Federal Bureau of Special Investigations, all I wanted was peace. Cody, 13, had already been through enough after a drunk driver slammed into our car and took his ability to walk. So I bought a small house in Sycamore Glen, a neighborhood that looked straight out of a real estate brochure. Neat lawns, quiet streets, the whole American dream. For the first week, it actually was peaceful. Then came the golf carts. Two self-important HOA officers showed up while I was fixing a broken step on the porch. Aviators, fake radios, and the kind of smug you only find in men with zero authority and too much time. We've received reports of loitering. One of them announced, gesturing at Cody, who was literally sitting in his own driveway sketching birds. "That's my kid," I said. "On my property." They buzzed off. But I could already smell the storm coming. 2 days later, we got a citation taped to our door. Unauthorized medical equipment visible from the street. Translation: Cody's wheelchair. Next came obstructing walkways and even noise violations for the sound of his wheels on concrete. Every time Cody went outside, they followed him, clipboards in hand, whispering about how we were lowering property values. I tried reasoning. I approached the HOA president. Deborah Langforthink stepped forward. "Wife meets local tyrant." I explained Cody's condition. I even quoted federal disability law. She smiled and said, "We're just trying to maintain the visual harmony of our community." In other words, make my son disappear. Cody started withdrawing. He stopped drawing, stopped asking to go outside. It was like watching his light fade, day by day. Then, one Saturday, he asked to go to the park. I said yes, but I trailed behind, keeping an eye on things. That's when I saw them. 2 HOA volunteers had set up a folding table at the park entrance, demanding resident ID to enter. Cody didn't have one. 13. He told them we lived here. They didn't care. One grabbed his wheelchair handle. Cody panicked, tried to back up, and his wheel caught the curb. He tipped over. I heard the crash before I saw it. By the time I got there, he was scraped up and shaking. His sketch pad was in pieces. The chair was busted beyond repair. I didn't yell, didn't cuss. I pulled out my real badge and said, "Touch my son again, and you'll answer to federal law." They bolted. But that night, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to scare them. I was going to take them down. I spent the next week collecting every violation we'd received. Took photos, recorded HOA members following us, talked to neighbors, many of whom had similar horror stories but were too afraid to speak out. That's when I found out what was really going on. Turns out Deborah and a few board members were working with a real estate investment group. They wanted to rezone parts of the neighborhood to turn it into a gated luxury complex. But first, they had to clean up the area, remove families like ours who didn't fit the image they wanted to sell. Cody was just the first target. My lucky break came when Victor Ng, a former board member with a conscience, showed up at my door. He handed me a thumb drive full of internal emails, board meeting recordings, and blueprints. The evidence was damning. Deborah wasn't just enforcing rules. She was intentionally harassing families, especially those with disabled members, elderly residents, or renters. And get this, they had sold my land to the development group while I was deployed overseas years earlier and buried the paperwork. I had enough. I called an old friend from my military intel days, now a Department of Justice ADA liaison. We coordinated with local law enforcement and the FBI. At the next HOA board meeting, the clubhouse was packed. Most neighbors thought it was about landscaping or pool hours. Instead, we rolled in with federal agents. Deborah screamed about harassment and legal overreach. But when they showed her the warrant and the thumb drive, she went pale. She and 3 others were arrested on the spot. Charges included civil rights violations, assaulting a disabled minor, fraud, impersonating law enforcement, and yes, selling land they didn't legally own. Within days, the HOA was dissolved by court order. The development project was canceled. And best part? That clubhouse, the one they used like their personal throne room, I bought it. Cash. We tore out their security cameras, ripped down the gate signs, widened the doors, and reopened it as the Sycamore Glen Community Center. No ID checkpoints, no patrols, just people. On opening day, Cody rolled in with a brand new all-terrain chair donated by a veterans charity. He wore a t-shirt that read, "HOA this." We laughed the whole way home. And that night, for the first time since we moved in, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. Silence. Not the kind that follows fear. The kind that means peace. So let me ask you, have you ever had to deal with an HOA run by tyrants? Or watch someone you love get pushed out by people hiding behind the rules? Share your story in the comments. Let's talk about it. Because this kind of abuse only ends when we stand up together.